Where emotions, heartbreak, and truth collide, the country music world has been shaken to its core. After months of whispers, speculation, and nervous silence, Blake Shelton has finally confirmed what fans feared all along. His marriage with Gwen Stefani is over. The couple that once redefined love, loyalty, and chemistry under Hollywood's brightest lights has now reached a quiet, heartbreaking end. In a statement that stunned millions, Blake's words were simple but devastating. Sometimes love changes. It wasn't dramatic, it wasn't loud, just painfully honest. The kind of truth that lingers long after the cameras stop rolling. For years, their story felt like a fairy tale written in real time, a bond born out of heartbreak, healed through music and sealed with laughter, duets, hand-stolen glances on the voice. But lately, fans had noticed the silence between them. Fewer public appearances, fewer smiles, and a growing sense that something wasn't right. Now, with Blake's confirmation, the silence finally has meaning. And behind that quiet statement lies a storm of emotion, exhaustion, and untold pain that few saw coming. Because this wasn't just another celebrity breakup. This was the collapse of a dream, one that millions of fans believed proved that second chances in love were real. But what truly happened behind the red chairs, the songs, and the smiles? How did one of music's most beloved couples go from soulmates to strangers? That's where the real story begins. It all started in the most unexpected of places, a televised competition filled with bright lights, spinning red chairs, and the hum of rivalry. The Voice wasn't just another show that season. It became the backdrop to one of Hollywood's most talked-about love stories. Blake Shelton, the rugged country star from Oklahoma, with a heart as big as his ranch, met Gwen Stefani, the California pop queen known for her style, confidence, and unmistakable voice. Two worlds that couldn't have been more different suddenly collided, and somehow they fit. When they first appeared together, no one saw romance on the horizon. They were simply colleagues, teasing each other between performances and judging rounds. But what fans didn't see was the quiet connection forming behind the scenes. Two people, both broken in their own ways, finding comfort in shared pain. Gwen had just walked away from a crumbling marriage to Gavin Rossdale, while Blake was healing from his highly publicized split with Miranda Lambert. Both had been through emotional wars, both trying to rebuild themselves. And then came that spark, and not forced, not planned, the kind that makes you forget the cameras are even there. Fans began to notice small moments, the way Blake would look at her when she laughed, the way Gwen blushed when he joked. Soon those moments became stories, and those stories turned into headlines. Their chemistry was undeniable, and what began as friendship blossomed into something neither of them expected, a love that felt real, raw and beautifully imperfect. It wasn't long before interviews, songs, and on-screen appearances painted a picture of two souls who had somehow found light in the middle of heartbreak. When they performed together, it wasn't just music, Emma. It was therapy. Their duets told their story better than any statement ever could. For fans, it was a fairy tale unfolding in real time, the pop princess and the country cowboy, proving that love could be reborn after pain. But behind every fairy tale lies a truth that's far more complicated. And for Blake and Gwen, that truth was waiting just beyond the spotlight. For years, Blake Shelton and Gwen Stefani seemed untouchable, the perfect picture of love under the spotlight. Every red carpet smile, every shared laugh on The Voice, every duet that melted hearts only added to their image as Hollywood's most grounded couple. But behind those polished moments, something quieter was happening. According to people close to them, the tension didn't arrive suddenly. It crept in slowly, through long nights apart, missed calls, and unspoken frustrations. Behind closed doors, their laughter was replaced by long silences. Those who saw them off camera noticed that what once came naturally now felt forced. They were trying to keep it together for the fans, one insider revealed. They didn't want anyone to see the cracks forming. For a while they managed to hide it. On stage, their chemistry still shined. They performed love songs that made audiences believe in forever. But when the lights dimmed, reality set in. The distance between them wasn't measured in miles. It was emotional. Friends say Gwen often felt like Blake was drifting away. He'd be sitting right beside her, but it felt like he wasn't really there, said one source. She tried to reach him, but something had changed. At first, she blamed the pressure, the schedules, the constant traveling, the noise of fame that never truly stops. Blake, on the other hand, grew quieter. Those who know him say he started spending more time in solitude, escaping into his ranch life whenever he could. Behind their smiles was the slow unraveling of two people trying desperately to hold on to something they no longer recognized. Yet even as things grew heavy, they kept showing up, for fans, for interviews, for each other. Because for Blake and Gwen, walking away too soon felt like failure. But love, no matter how strong, can only hide behind performance for so long. And soon their silence would speak louder than any love song ever could. When the news finally broke, it wasn't through a flashy Instagram post or a dramatic press conference. It came quietly, almost too quietly, in the form of a brief statement released by Blake Shelton's representative. After years of love and shared memories, Blake and Gwen have decided to part ways amicably. They ask for privacy during this difficult time. Just 2 sentences. Simple, respectful, and yet those words hit harder than any heartbreak anthem. The silence that followed was deafening. Fans who had watched their love unfold in front of millions were left in disbelief. Some refused to accept it, clinging to hope that it was just another rumor. But Blake's confirmation left no room for speculation. It was over. And what stunned people most wasn't just the breakup itself, but how it happened. Sources close to the couple revealed that Gwen was completely caught off guard by the timing. Though the two had been having honest conversations about their struggles, she never expected Blake to make the separation official so soon. She thought they still had time to fix things, one insider shared. When he finally said it was done, it broke her. The internet erupted instantly. Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok filled with old clips of their performances together. Moments of laughter, love, and promises that now felt hauntingly distant. Fans wrote emotional tributes under videos of their duets like "Nobody But You" and "Happy Anywhere." One user posted, "If Blake and Gwen can't make it, who can?" Another wrote, "They made us believe in second chances." Hashtags like "Now Pray for Blake and Gwen" and "Odd Love Is Over" began trending within hours. For years, their story had symbolized the idea that two broken hearts could find healing in each other. But now that illusion had shattered, and the world wanted answers. Behind the scenes, the mood was somber. Those close to Blake said he was struggling emotionally, though he kept his composure in public. Friends described him as reflective, often lost in thought. "You can see it in his eyes," one friend said. "He still loves her. He just couldn't keep pretending everything was okay." Meanwhile, Gwen was reportedly devastated. Her family stepped in immediately, rallying around her with quiet support. "She's heartbroken," another source shared. "She gave that marriage everything she had." It was the kind of heartbreak that doesn't need loud words or accusations, the kind that's felt in silence, in the space between what once was and what will never be again. And while the world mourned the end of their fairy tale, those closest to them knew this wasn't a sudden collapse. It was a slow unraveling, one that had been written in quiet moments for months. Still, no one could have predicted how public and emotional the aftermath would become. Because once love this big breaks, the echoes never really fade. As the world tried to process the shocking news, the question on everyone's mind was simple. Why? How could a love story that felt so genuine, so powerful, suddenly crumble into silence? According to insiders, the answer wasn't one single moment. It was a slow collection of differences, pressures, and dreams that began pulling them in opposite directions. One of the biggest challenges was their lifestyle divide. Gwen, the California pop icon, thrived in the energy of Los Angeles, fashion shows, studio sessions, her Las Vegas residency, and raising her 3 children in a fast-paced world of creativity and glamour. Blake, on the other hand, felt most at home on his Oklahoma ranch, surrounded by quiet, open skies, the smell of fresh grass, and the stillness that fame could never give him. They loved each other, said one Nashville source, but they weren't living the same life anymore. At first, they tried to blend their worlds. Gwen spent time on the ranch, posting photos in cowboy boots. Blake joined her in LA whenever he could. But as time passed, those visits became shorter and less frequent. Distance doesn't always mean miles. Sometimes it's the growing space between two hearts beating at different rhythms. Creative differences also started to show. Gwen's artistic pull leaned toward pop and fashion-forward projects, while Blake's heart stayed rooted in traditional country music. When they tried to collaborate, insiders say the tension was subtle but real, a tug-of-war between two artistic identities that no longer blended the way they once did. Even their personalities, once perfectly complementary, began to clash under pressure. Blake's laid-back approach and need for solitude contrasted with Gwen's emotional expressiveness and high-energy lifestyle. What started as balance eventually turned into friction. "She wanted to talk things through," said a source close to the couple, "but he often shut down. That left her feeling alone even when he was right beside her. And while fame brought them together, it also became one of their biggest challenges. The constant attention, the pressure to always appear happy, the endless scrutiny of their every word. It was exhausting." Friends say that the couple's biggest struggle wasn't anger or betrayal. It was disconnection. "They stopped understanding each other," one insider explained, "not out of lack of love, but because life just kept pulling them in different directions. Still, through all of it, they tried. They went to counseling, took breaks from work, and spent quiet weekends together away from cameras. But sometimes effort isn't enough when two people start growing in separate directions. "They still care," said a friend close to Blake, "but love changed shape. It wasn't the same anymore. And as much as neither of them wanted to admit it, that realization hurt the most. But even with the heartbreak and the distance, something deeper remained. Respect. There were no cruel words, no public drama, no bitterness. Just two people who loved deeply, tried fully, and finally accepted that love sometimes ends softly, not with a fight but with a sigh still." That quiet ending left behind a question that kept echoing through Nashville and Hollywood alike. If they couldn't make it work, what chance does anyone else have? When the news broke, the reaction was immediate. A wave of heartbreak, disbelief, and confusion that rippled through both the country and pop music worlds. Fans who had watched Blake and Gwen's love unfold on television, in interviews, and on red carpets suddenly felt the air go still. Social media flooded with posts, memories, love notes, and heartbreak emojis. One fan wrote, "If Blake and Gwen can't make it, no one can." It wasn't just gossip, it was grief. Because to millions, their story had been proof that love could heal old wounds. But behind the screens and headlines, both stars were quietly processing the end in their own ways. For Blake, retreat came naturally. After wrapping up his commitments, he headed back to his Oklahoma ranch, the same place where he found peace after his divorce from Miranda Lambert years earlier. Close friends say he's been spending long days working the land, tending to his animals and avoiding the public eye. "He's back to being a country boy," one friend shared. "No cameras, no noise, just silence." Those who've spoken with him say he's not angry, just reflective. "He's not the kind of guy to throw blame," a Nashville insider revealed. "He's the type to sit on his porch with a drink, think it through, and let time do the healing." Gwen, on the other hand, took a different path. Known for her resilience, she's channeled her emotions into music and family. Her social media posts have become more introspective, song lyrics, snippets of writing, and photos of her with her 3 boys. It's clear she's focused on rebuilding herself from the inside out. "She's hurting," said a source close to her, "but Gwen has always turned pain into art. That's how she survives." Still, fans couldn't help but notice the subtle signs of heartbreak. The sudden absence of her wedding ring in recent photos, the quiet tone in interviews, the way her voice cracked slightly when she mentioned new beginnings. For those who followed their love story from day one, it felt like watching the lights dim on a stage they never wanted to close. But the split didn't just affect their hearts, it sent ripples through the industry too. Collaborations were paused, public appearances cancelled, and questions swirled about whether The Voice producers might try to bring them back for a reunion season to rekindle fan nostalgia. One thing was certain, their story wasn't just a breakup. It had become a moment in pop culture, a bittersweet chapter in 2 legendary careers that had once intertwined so beautifully. And even as both moved forward separately, neither spoke ill of the other. No interviews, no shade, no bitterness, just quiet understanding. "They both knew it was time," a close friend said softly. "They didn't stop loving each other, they just stopped fitting." It's the kind of heartbreak that doesn't make headlines after a week, but lingers in the silence of every old duet. Every lyric and every fan who still can't skip their love songs without feeling that sting of loss. But as the dust settled, one thing became clear. This wasn't the end of either of their stories. It was just the end of this chapter. And for both Blake and Gwen, what came next would redefine who they are, not just as artists, but as people. Just when fans began to accept the breakup and both stars seemed to be quietly moving on, something unexpected started stirring. Online rumors, speculations, whispers that refused to stay quiet. It started with a few blurry photos, then cryptic social media posts that fans couldn't help but dissect. Some claimed Blake had been seen spending more time with an old friend from his early music days in Nashville. Others pointed out that Gwen's new lyrics seemed to carry hidden meanings, lines about trust, time, and change that felt just a little too personal. Of course, none of it was confirmed. But in the age of social media, all it takes is one post, one clip, or one quote to set the internet ablaze. One fan commented, "Blake's eyes say he's not over her," while another replied, "Gwen's new song sounds like she's letting him go for good." And somewhere in the middle of all the noise, the truth remained quietly unspoken. Reports suggest that despite their split, Blake and Gwen have stayed in touch. Not romantically, but out of respect. They still share mutual friends, and sources claim that they occasionally check in with one another. "There's no bad blood," one insider said. "They'll always care. They just know they can't go back." But then came another twist that had fans completely divided. During a recent private industry event in Nashville, Blake was reportedly spotted deep in conversation with a familiar face from his past. Rumors suggest it was someone tied to his earlier years, a person who once played a quiet but meaningful role in his journey long before fame took over. The internet exploded with theories, fan edits, and emotional debates. Was Blake reconnecting with someone from his past, or was it all just innocent small talk? Nobody knows for sure, and neither star has addressed it publicly. Meanwhile, Gwen's next project began to spark attention for entirely different reasons. In behind-the-scenes footage from her latest studio session, fans noticed lyrics that seemed to mirror her real life. "We built a dream too fast, and I held on when you let go." Was it coincidence? Or confession? Gwen hasn't said a word. But sometimes silence says more than any statement could. As the buzz grew louder, one thing became clear. This story wasn't over. It was simply shifting into something more complex, more human, and perhaps more revealing than ever before, because love stories don't always end when the relationship does. Sometimes they echo, through songs, memories, and the quiet ways two people still feel connected long after saying goodbye. And for Blake and Gwen, that echo was only getting louder. As the dust began to settle, one thing became undeniable. The world wasn't ready to let go of Blake and Gwen's story. Because for millions of fans, their love wasn't just entertainment. It was hope. The public reaction came in waves. Some fans mourned the end of an era, posting throwback clips of their duets, interviews, and that unforgettable moment when Gwen whispered, "I love you," on live television. Others, though, were more skeptical, questioning whether fame, distance, or even outside pressures had played a role in tearing them apart. Social media became a collage of emotions. One user wrote, "They were proof that love can heal broken hearts. This hurts." Another commented, "Sometimes the strongest couples are just the ones that hide the pain best." Even celebrities joined the conversation. Country stars, industry friends, and co-hosts from The Voice sent subtle nods of support. Some posted broken heart emojis. Others shared quiet messages about new beginnings and private battles. It was clear that those closest to the couple knew this wasn't a simple story. Meanwhile, the fan divide only deepened. Team Blake stood by their country hero, calling him loyal, honest, and grounded. Team Gwen praised her strength, grace, and emotional transparency. But beyond the chatter, one sentiment united them all: respect. There was no scandal, no dramatic accusations, no ugly fallout. Just two people who, despite the heartbreak, had handled everything with rare dignity. One longtime fan wrote, "This breakup hurts more because they didn't destroy each other. They just let go." And in a world that often feeds on chaos, that kind of quiet ending felt almost sacred. Yet for every moment of sympathy, there was curiosity too. Fans began rewatching interviews, analyzing body language, and picking apart old lyrics in search of clues. Was this song about him? Did that performance mean something? When did it start to fall apart? It was as if everyone was trying to trace the moment where the fairy tale began to fade. But despite all the theories, neither Blake nor Gwen broke their silence beyond that one statement. And that silence became the story. Because sometimes, what people don't say tells you everything. And while fans continued to mourn and speculate, there was an unspoken truth that lingered. Maybe love doesn't always end with anger or betrayal. Maybe sometimes it ends simply because life changes, people grow, and hearts learn to let go. Still, one question echoed through the comments, the interviews, and the whispers in Nashville. Was this really the end, or just a pause before something unexpected? Because in the unpredictable world of love and music, nothing ever truly feels final. And so the curtain falls on one of Hollywood's most beautiful, and now most heartbreaking, love stories. Blake Shelton and Gwen Stefani once showed the world that even the most unlikely hearts could find their rhythm together. They reminded us that love doesn't always start perfect. Sometimes it begins with two people carrying the weight of broken pasts, choosing to heal side by side. But somewhere between the bright lights and the quiet nights, something changed. What was once effortless became heavy. What once healed them began to hurt. And though they tried, through songs, smiles, and second chances, love, like music, sometimes fades into silence. Now they walk separate paths. Gwen finding strength in faith and family. Blake retreating into music and solitude. Yet even apart, their story still connects them. Because real love doesn't disappear, and it transforms. It leaves behind lessons, melodies, and memories that never truly fade. Their breakup isn't just the end of a relationship, it's the closing of a chapter that inspired millions to believe in second chances. And maybe that's the real legacy of Blake and Gwen. Not the heartbreak, not the headlines, but the reminder that love, in all its beauty and pain, is still worth believing in. So as the lights dim and the world moves on, one truth remains. They may no longer sing together, but their story will echo in the hearts of fans forever. Because sometimes, the greatest love stories don't end with forever. They end with gratitude,